Welcome back to Tweener Heads. Welcome back to another special video today. We have JY, as he likes to call himself, and everyone knows him around the circuit. How are you today, JY?
Good. How are you, Phil?
I can't complain. It's been a busy day. Today has been the day that the U.S. Open announced it's coming back with Cincinnati involved as well, and it's been a whirlwind of information kind of thrown at you. So
Yeah.
how have you been? What's been going on? How are you involved with the tennis world?
Well, everything's been good for me. So, mostly I work with Reilly Opelka. So really since Indian Wells, I've been home this entire time. Then a club I usually teach at opened up again 2 weeks ago. So, I've just been kind of teaching back at normal time and a couple hours a day. So, and now just kind of waiting every day, just refreshing the Twitter stream, the emails, and just the text messages, and just seeing what's going on, when do we know anything for certain, and just waiting on my time to get back out there.
When did you start working with Reilly?
I started with Reilly January of 2018.
Okay. And how did you kind of get in touch with him, and how did that relationship start?
So long story short, try to keep it simple because Reilly and I actually met when he was 13 or 14.
Oh, okay.
So when I was actually playing on tour, he was one of the juniors I went to practice with once at Boca Raton because he was training out of there a lot. So we met each other then there. Then when he first turned pro, he needed someone to travel with for a short amount of time. We did it short term because I got a full-time job in Atlanta that I really needed to take because I had just finished playing on tour. As we all know, the Futures Tour doesn't make anyone rich. So I needed money ASAP.
Yeah.
And then so then I started working full-time at a country club here about a year and a half in. Started having conversations with the USTA about working with them again. And just in that same time, Reilly had moved back to Boca Raton. He went to live on campus there in Orlando and trained there. So he moved to Boca to start working with Jay Berger, but they needed someone to travel. So, Jay and I go back a long ways. And then so they gave me the call again and said, hey, we'd like for you to travel with Reilly again, but this time on a more full-time basis than when we first started. And at that time, I was in a better place. And just it was more full-time to be with him. I couldn't pass it up. So that's the short version.
That's the short version. And how long were you on tour for?
So I played sporadically. I played every collegiate summer.
Okay.
Right. And then I went to work in finance for 2 years after college. Then I went back to play on tour, and I did 3.5-ish years, something like that.
Oh, wow.
I don't think, yeah.
So you kind of did the real world thing, went back to athletics, and then kind of got into the world of coaching.
Yeah.
How has that transition been, especially was it hard to go from like a finance job to, okay, I'm going to put my body through hell almost every week?
At first, no. Well, no, it wasn't because, when I was working finance, I wasn't on my schedule anymore. I had no control over anything. I was told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and it didn't matter how I thought I did it. The only thing that mattered is what they thought, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going back to something to where pretty much I was making my own schedule. I could pretty much practice when I wanted, and then there was just more freedom too. No one practices 8-9 hours a day, right? Like, so, I was working in finance 9 to 10 hours a day. So I had no free time outside of that. And then I'm playing outside of practicing with friends of mine. The transition was actually extremely easy for the first year. So yeah, it was because I was loving it, right? I loved the pain. I was happy to be out of the office again. I was happy to be sweating, getting in shape, losing the weight I'd put on. And to me, because I had gone to work, to go back and play tennis, one, it was my choice. No one forced me to do it. And because I knew the real world, I knew how great it was to be able to play tennis. I guess I was trying to make a living with it, but to do that as my full-time job, I truly, truly appreciated what that was, because I knew what it was like to sit behind 3 computer screens with multiple bosses telling me what to do all day.
Oh, 100%. That's always, and a lot of people, I think, in the tennis world, media, or just are involved with tennis, understand the kind of pains of, okay, we can do what we want, but then when you take a real job or a desk job, kind of what you experienced, 3 screens staring at you in a day for 9 hours it's mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I don't know how I did it. I guess in the time I just wasn't thinking, but now, I mean, if I sit in a computer screen for 3 hours in a row, I get a headache. So I don't know how I did it.
Welcome to my world. I have to buy blue light glasses to kind of make sure my headache goes down every day from editing.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something I need to try, actually.
I would
Never
definitely
tried it.
recommend it. That you can get some
Yeah.
cheap pairs on Amazon too. I enjoy it.
Okay.
How would
Yeah.
you? So going back to your tennis and working with Reilly, what's it like training a guy that's 7 foot? I think that's the first question I have to start out with.
Well, I know he's going to be in every single match if he wants to be. So because of his serve. So I think that provides, it made it fun because we knew that we never had to like fear opponents, right? We knew
Wow.
that it
Okay.
didn't matter who he was playing. Like we knew he had a shot. So I think that was a lot of fun because even when I played, I'm just being realistic,
Hmm.
going into some opponents for the first time, you just kind of know like it's going to be a tough one for me to get a victory today, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you don't want to admit it. You're trying to find every way. So I think that was the one thing with him. And then I don't know. I just looked at all the pluses to it, which was, I mean, he's going to be one of the strongest guys on tour by far.
Hmm.
If he hits the ball clean, 80% chance he's winning the point,
Hmm.
right? Like it's just bigger. And because I've hit with him, so I understand what it's like to be on the other side of the court. Like it's been fun. It's been interesting. And for me, very challenging, but in a good way because obviously I'm not that tall. So, I mean, I had to go out of my way to just kind of speak with him and see from his perspective what it's like for him to be on court.
Okay.
And I think that's something, Jay worked with him a lot as well when he was a junior and helped him. So they helped me put myself in his shoes
Okay.
and really understand the game from there. So it provided a new perspective for tennis for me.
It was that kind of the coaching strategy that you went into the job with. Did you have a philosophy going into it that you thought you would kind of create with him, or was there something already in plan or a way that you could start off with him?
So, I mean, Jay Berger was the main guy, right? He's the
Hmm.
head coach. So even though I spent a lot of time with Reilly, I mean, he's the main guy. I mean, it would be stupid for me to not even acknowledge that. I mean, his experience, his knowledge is way beyond anything I've ever had. So
Yeah.
it was more of, okay, what is Jay looking to do? Is Reilly on board with what he's looking to do? And then do I agree? And if I disagree at any point, it's not I'm going to impose my will. It's, okay, well, what does Jay think? Does he disagree with me? Why? How can I come to his side? I mean, fortunately, I think that was the easiest part, right? I think I've agreed with 99.99% of the stuff that Jay said. So for me, especially, we had a 2-day trial in South Florida, and I just thought to myself, Jay, I don't know what you want me to say. I agree with everything you're saying. So it was actually very easy, very comfortable for me to know that I really was working with someone who was guiding me towards exactly what I saw as well. So I wasn't trying to create anything, but it helped that we all agreed.
That's one of the biggest parts, especially when you create a cohesive group like you have with Jay and Reilly. You always have to be on the same page. You always have to be together with whatever you're doing. So when it comes to debating things or seeing eye to eye, it seems like you guys have a good work ethic together. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what's been the best part is we communicate so much,
Mm-hmm.
so much that there's never been a day that I've been with Reilly that Jay hasn't heard from me through either a text message, an email, or a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if ever I felt like I wasn't sure about something, I wouldn't just go out of my way and say it to Reilly and potentially mess with his head, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
make sure Jay's on board.
Okay.
And then sometimes even with Reilly, I think it's so important with players. I mean, Riley's a professional player. He's played this game a long time. Professional players understand what they're doing out there.
Yeah.
And so it was important for me too, especially for working with a guy with 7 feet tall that's different than what I've played and seen. If I wasn't sure of something, I can ask Reilly.
Yeah.
And I think it's better to ask the player, be like, hey, look, I see this. What do you think? How do you see this shot? How do you see this strategy unfolding? Right? Do you think that's worth a shot or no? and then we work it out together.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to know everything, because I think it's worse if I just try to say something because I want to pretend that I'm right and act like I'm right.
Yeah.
And one, Reilly will see that I'm wrong and be like, no, you're wrong. Right. And I think
Yeah.
it's worse that for him to say that, because then he's just losing trust in my abilities. Right. And then if he goes and does something just because I wanted to pretend to be right and then he loses, that's going to look even worse too.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's better. Everyone talks it out. Everyone gets along. So it's even easier we all feel so comfortable talking to each other.
That I like that in the sense of you guys you guys talk it out rather than kind of him trying to figure it out. But it seems that all these tennis players, they know how to play tennis. It seems like they're a professional for a reason. When you come in or a coach comes in, it's more for guidance and kind of confidence boosting. Am I wrong to assume that?
I mean, it's close, right? I mean, you're pretty
Mm-hmm.
close to it. And also just making sure that, I guess, the guidance part, that they're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird how in tennis, and I can't compare to other sports, but at least in tennis, it's amazing how just you lose a little bit of confidence, or you just kind of try some things at the wrong time and you don't even really realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the coach has to come in, watch the tape, and be like, hey, careful, you're developing this weird pattern of doing these shots out of nowhere, right? Just
Yeah.
get back to this, get back to that, everything will be fine. Because there's a lot of fun things you could do on a tennis court: serve volley, drop shot, angle, slices. So it's important to stay within what your identity is and not get too creative at the wrong time.
So keeping Reilly's identity of the big serve, big forehand is kind of key to build around, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What was when you first met Reilly during the trial period? What was that like? Talk us through what was his first impression of you? Did it click instantly? Was there any work to go through, or what was that like?
Well, I think you'd have to ask him what he thought of me, right? I guess since he asked me to come back and that we stayed together this long, I'd say that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
My impression of him was he's such a hard worker. It's
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable how hard he works. Like, he didn't have to be reminded to work hard. He never showed up late. Always put in the extra time in the gym with the physio to work on his body. I mean, just like everyone else, he had his bad days where he could lose his temper and you kind of lose some of the practice of the match, but I think that's normal. So what I was so impressed with when I first met him when he was 19, 20 was how professional he was.
Really?
Yeah, and just how hard he worked. I never had to be like, hey, come on, move your feet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was never about that. So that was the best part. His professionalism in practice was way beyond what I've seen a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-old kids.
What surprised you the most when you first watched this game, besides his power and his height?
I think how good he actually was.
Really?
So, well, in the sense, people think of 7-footers and you think of like some guys that just kind of struggle to play from the baseline.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Reilly's just all-around game was so impressive. And then on the days that I saw him play his best tennis, that's when I was really impressed. I was like, wow, that's some really good tennis there. So, and you could see just the future within his game. Like, this guy could be really good if he just continues to get better from here. We've seen some other big guys that we just feel like, it's going to be tough for them to win from the baseline. Or, we've seen it with other guys, oh, that guy's got to be at the net all day. Or, oh, that guy should never come to the net, right? You never really had that feeling with Reilly. You felt like once he put his mind to things, he could get better at anything. So I think that was very fun to see his upside when I first saw him.
When I first saw Reilly, I think the first thing I thought of was a better moving Isner when I first watched him play personally, because he had the big serve, he had the big forehand. But what people, I think, underestimate in his game is how well he can move for being 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
And for me was how incredible that was. How well do you think his footwork compares maybe to the rest of the tour as like a 7-footer? It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think the approach that he's tried to take, and a lot of us have tried to take, is, I mean, look at how well Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and how well they move. I mean, they're 6'11", 6'10", right? So there's no way an inch or two can be that big of a difference, right? It's just about develop it. And I think he's developed it because he played basketball. He loved to play basketball. You know, he just had no problem just developing his movement. So I think that's the thing people need to just realize. Just because you're a big guy doesn't mean you can't move, because if that was the case, then Kevin Durant would have never existed, right? It's not a limitation of size. It's just the way you're trained. So they trained him properly when he was young. They got him moving really well. His coaches did a pretty good job, well, really good job, as you can see, how well he got up winning Junior Wimbledon. So, yeah, we really took that approach, and he did too, and he ran with it.
What was your first coaching struggle when you first came to help Reilly? What was the biggest transition there?
It's hard to say because there's always so many different scenarios. I do remember early on, you know, he got off to a pretty good start in 2018. Semifinals, 2 challengers, quarterfinals Del Rey, where he beat Sock, beat Harrison, and then he lost 6 first rounds in a row. I think it was 6. So 6 first rounds, that's a long time, maybe especially in tournaments, but in days as well.
Yeah.
So I do remember that vividly. And it's not easy. I mean, being with a confidence down, I do remember that wasn't the most fun thing, but you know, I think it's just part of the job for most guys. Unless you're Federer, Djokovic, or Nadal, you're going to go through that at least one, maybe probably multiple times in your career. So, I mean, it just sucks. Definitely wasn't a lot of fun seeing all those losses, but we just kept thinking. I mean, our goal was we never had short-term goals, really.
Okay.
I mean, we had ideas, but we knew, and we still know, how good Reilly can be. So to us is, look, you just keep working the right way, keep making the right decisions, and you'll get there, right? Whether that's this year, next year, or 5 years from now, at the end of the day, who really cares, right? You're going to be fine so long as you're making the right decisions. But if you don't make the right decisions and you start losing the wrong way, and when you can win the wrong way as well, then it's going to be harder for you to move up. Because for us at that time, he was still in the challengers. Okay, so what if you don't win? We would love for you to win challengers, but we really care about you making runs at ATPs and slams. So just keep building, keep getting better, just keep learning from these losses, and that's the most important thing.
So it's not just necessarily you or your difficulties when it comes to coaching. It's kind of the whole team of seeing your player in a rut or seeing the whole situation kind of spiraling down, and you have to somehow keep your spirits up, and no matter what, not just for you, but for your player, right?
Yeah, it's not enjoyable for me, but I hate seeing him go through that, right? You don't want to see your player go through that. It's not fun. They've dedicated their lives to this game. Their income comes from the game there. You can have the longest term goal in the world, but it still sucks when you're going through it. So you just don't want to see anyone lose that many matches in a row. I don't care who they are. It's not fun. So, and just to try to keep his spirits up and keep making him believe, because for any player, the worst thing you can do is, like, you just want to prevent them from going too far down in their confidence. There's always dips, right? It's never a straight line to the top, right? So you're always going to have a couple consecutive losses. But you don't want it to go from 6 to 10 to 12 to then so negative where they start practicing bad, then they get injured, they have bad habits, and they don't practice hard anymore. It's just because we've seen that with some players where they had one good year, they have some losses, and then things just get out of control.
100%. I totally agree. Now to pivot towards more of the overall arching theme of recently, the announcement where the U.S. Open is going to move forward on August 31st, as well as Cincinnati. From your perspective, how did you hear about it, and what are your thoughts?
Twitter, man. Everything's on Twitter now. It's all Twitter. Twitter's breaking news. There's no point of even like having the news channel anymore. So yeah, I heard it through Twitter.
Okay.
But then again, just I keep searching. I have no reason why. I don't know if it's just a pure coincidence, but then I just kept refreshing either like the top players pages or like I looked at Djokovic's and teams, and then I just kept searching the ATP site, and I went to my own ATP login because the Player Zone has their own login, and I just haven't seen anything from the ATP side. So
oh wow,
I don't know what that means. I don't know anything. So I'm just kind of giving it a day, and I mean, granted, what is it, June? I mean, I'll probably call Reilly tomorrow. I'll call the coaches. I'll see what's going on. Go from there.
Because how far in advance do you usually plan out your entire year as a coach?
Oh man, I mean, we pretty good I think Reilly's at least got into the ranking now where we can plan longer term. Right?
Okay.
Maybe a year ago. I mean, a year ago we didn't really have that. Right? You started off 99 in the world. You don't know exactly where you're getting into main draws or qualities. So I mean, I remember by end of December or November even, we kind of already were looking all the way through Wimbledon, right? Jeez. So we're not necessarily marking it down like this is our set schedule.
Okay.
But we look out towards next year and be like, okay, we'd like it to be like this.
Okay.
Now, so many things happen, right? For example, you know, we had planned going to Acapulco this year, and he ended up winning Del Rey. So, and he played 2 matches in one day, and he would have had to leave the next day. So he was already hurt. So we just said, all right, we're scrapping Acapulco. So those things happen, you know, and then you just kind of reset and you say, all right, should we throw in another tournament later on? But yeah, we plan at least 4 to 6 months out.
Oh, wow. So do you book all the hotels and everything during that time or no? You kind of
wait? It's not necessary.
Okay, I was about to say, like, if you plan that far out, I'm like, either the deals are great or you're really banking on something.
Yeah, well, there's a couple tournaments, like, for example, I think Paris, the French Open is one of them where, you know, those hotels can really fill up quick.
Yeah.
The ones with a lot of players and coaches coming. So maybe you want to get your hotel reservation 2 or 3 months in advance. Indian Wells is the same thing. There's not that many hotels, at least remotely affordable. So, I mean, I think we're throwing in our hotel reservation by end of January, something like that, mid-January, just to get it in.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
And JY, I really appreciate you coming on today. Is there anything you want to shout out or plug before we end this?
Well, if anyone wants to go to my website, obonetennis.com. I've just started through this downtime. We'll see how much I'm able to keep up with it once the tour starts again. Just started writing some blogs for junior kids and junior parents that maybe don't have the exposure to the professional side, just to try to help them with their junior tennis development and going through that. There's also my Instagram page is Obone Tennis. And I mean, I'm on Twitter as well, JY Aubone. Anyone can reach me there. Pick one.
Pick one. You have 3 options. You have to at least go to one.
If you can't access me, it's not my fault at that point.
That's very true. I'll give you that because there's so many ways to reach out to people. So, JY, I really appreciate you coming on today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Have a good one.